Captain Louise Meridian stood at the observation deck of New Tombaugh Station, watching the crimson glow that had once been Earth's star paint the ice plains of Pluto in hellish amber. The sun, in its inexorable march toward becoming a red giant, had already claimed Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The asteroid belt was nothing but glowing cinders now, and Jupiter, magnificent Jupiter with its great red spot and dancing moons, had vanished into the stellar furnace just 18 months ago. Humanity's exodus to the outer rim had been generations in the making. What had started as a research outpost on Pluto in 2157 had evolved into humanity's last sanctuary. The planet's surface, once a frozen wasteland at -375 degrees Fahrenheit, now basked in the distant warmth of their dying star. Atmospheric processors hummed day and night, converting the thin nitrogen atmosphere into something breathable. Geothermal plants tapped the planet's core, while massive fusion reactors supplemented the increasingly powerful solar radiation. Louise pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, feeling the slight vibration from the atmospheric recyclers 3 levels below. At 38, she had never seen Earth except in archival footage, born as she was during the Great Migration. Her auburn hair was pulled back in the regulation style of the Plutonian Defense Corps, revealing the neural interface ports behind her left ear that connected her to the station's tactical systems. "Captain!" came a voice behind her. She turned to see Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen approaching, his expression grim. Marcus had been her second-in-command for 3 years, a brilliant tactician whose family had fled from Europa just before Jupiter's demise. His dark eyes held a weight that Louise recognized, the burden of bad news. "What is it, Marcus?" "Long-range sensors have detected anomalous readings at the edge of the system. Commander Okafor wants to see you in the war room immediately." Louise felt her stomach drop. For the past decade, humanity had been alone in their struggle against their dying star. The possibility of external threats had seemed almost laughably remote when they were focused on basic survival. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The war room of New Tombaugh Station buzzed with activity. Commander Sarah Okafor, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and scars from the Jupiter evacuation, stood before a holographic display showing the outer reaches of the solar system. Red dots pulsed ominously beyond Pluto's orbit. "Report," Louise said, taking her position at the tactical console. 3 hours ago, our deep space monitoring array detected these signatures," Okafor began, manipulating the display. "Initial readings suggested they were asteroids or cometary debris, but their trajectory and acceleration patterns are artificial." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief xenobiologist, leaned forward from her position at the science station. "The energy signatures don't match any known human technology. The propulsion systems appear to be some form of controlled exotic matter manipulation." Louise studied the data streams. "How many contacts?" 14 confirmed, possibly more behind the sensor shadow of the leading group," Marcus replied, his fingers dancing over his console. "Current trajectory puts them on an intercept course with Pluto in approximately 72 hours. The room fell silent except for the hum of computers and life support systems. For a moment, Louise allowed herself to consider the implications. Humanity had spent 2 centuries fleeing their dying star, establishing this last foothold on the edge of everything. Now, when they were at their most vulnerable, something was coming for them. "Intentions?" she asked. Dr. Vasquez shook her head. "Unknown. They're not responding to our standard communication protocols. We've tried everything from basic mathematical sequences to the universal primer. Complete radio silence." Commander Okafor moved to the central display. "Captain Meridian, I'm placing the defense fleet under your direct command. We have 6 months of supplies, 12 operational warships, and approximately 40,000 civilians depending on us." Louise felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. 40,000 souls, miners, farmers, engineers, children, all that remained of humanity's billion-year heritage. "What about evacuation protocols? Where would we go?" Okafor asked quietly. "Pluto is the only habitable world left in the system. Beyond that, She gestured toward the hologram showing the vast emptiness of interstellar space. Our fastest ships couldn't reach Proxima Centauri with current life support capabilities. The tactical display updated, showing Pluto's defensive capabilities. The planet's 4 major cities, New Tomball, Lowell Station, Clyde Settlement, and Venetia Outpost, were protected by a network of orbital platforms and the small but advanced defense fleet. It wasn't much against an unknown alien threat, but it was all they had. I want full defensive preparations, Louise ordered. Alert all fleet commanders. Begin civilian evacuation to the deep shelters. And I want every piece of data we can gather on these contacts. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. As her team dispersed to carry out her orders, Louise remained staring at the holographic display. The red dots seemed to pulse with malevolent intent, growing larger with each update. Humanity had survived the death of their world, the loss of their son's embrace, and the long dark journey to the edge of everything. Now they faced perhaps their greatest test yet. The Plutonian defense fleet had been built for system patrol and asteroid mining protection, not warfare. Louise walked through the hangar bay of the flagship Charon's Crossing, watching her crews perform final diagnostics on weapons systems that had never been fired in anger. The ship's gravity generators hummed reassuringly beneath her feet, maintaining Earth-normal gravity through a combination of rotation and artificial field manipulation. "Ma'am," called out Chief Engineer Rodriguez from beneath a particle cannon housing. "We've increased power output to the main batteries by 15%, but I can't promise they'll hold together under sustained fire." Louise knelt beside the grizzled engineer. Rodriguez had been maintaining ships since before the Jupiter evacuation, his hands stained permanently black from years of working with exotic matter containment systems. "How many shots can we get?" "Maybe 50 from each cannon before we need to cycle the cooling systems. The alien contacts, their hull composition is unknown. We might be firing spit wads at battleships." Standing, Louise placed a hand on Rodriguez's shoulder. "Then we'll make those 50 shots count." The bridge of Charon's Crossing offered a panoramic view of Pluto's orbital space. Louise could see the 11 other ships of her fleet making final preparations, the heavy cruisers Kuiper and Sedna, 5 destroyers including her old command Eris, and 4 corvettes barely larger than shuttles but armed with the latest plasma torpedo technology. "Captain," Lieutenant Sarah Kim called from the communications station. "Admiral Zhang on the Kuiper is requesting final tactical conference." The holographic display materialized in the center of the bridge, showing the weathered face of Admiral Zhang Wei. At 65, he was one of the few officers who remembered Earth's evacuation. Behind him, Louise could see the bustle of his ship's bridge crew. "Admiral," Louise acknowledged. "Captain Meridian, I've reviewed your tactical proposal. It's ambitious, but it's our best option given the circumstances." Zhang's voice carried the weight of experience and the sadness of too many losses. "I'll position the heavy units in a defensive sphere around New Tomball. If these contacts prove hostile, we'll make them fight for every meter." Commander Helena Vasquez of the destroyer Make appeared in the display next. "My ship's sensor array has been tracking their approach. Whatever those ships are made of, they're absorbing most of our active scans. We're essentially flying blind." Louise studied the tactical readouts. "We stick to the plan. First contact protocols until we determine intentions. If they prove hostile, we protect the civilian population at all costs." "Understood," Zhang replied. "Fleet commanders, synchronize your chronometers. Contact in T-18 hours, 37 minutes. As the connection closed, Louise turned to her bridge crew. These men and women represented the best of humanity's remaining military tradition. Marcus Chen at the tactical station, his fingers unconsciously tracing the controls he'd memorized through countless drills. Lieutenant Kim at communications, young but brilliant, fluent in 17 Earth languages and 3 alien mathematical frameworks developed by Xenolinguistics teams. Navigator Petty Officer Jules Martinez, whose great-grandmother had piloted one of the last ships to escape Earth's atmosphere. "Marcus, what's the status on the orbital defense platforms?" "All 12 platforms are operational and linked to our tactical network. Each one has enough firepower to crack an asteroid, but their fixed positions make them vulnerable to coordinated assault. Louise nodded, studying the three-dimensional display showing Pluto's defensive network. The planet's rotation would bring different defense platforms into optimal firing positions as the engagement progressed, assuming it lasted that long. Captain, Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice crackled over the ship's intercom from the science lab. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the approaching contacts. There's something unusual about their propulsion systems. Put it on the main screen. The tactical display shifted to show wavelength analysis and energy distribution patterns. These readings suggest they're using controlled spatial distortion for propulsion. It's not just exotic matter, they're literally folding space around their ships. The implications hit Louise immediately. Any civilization capable of manipulating space-time for transportation would have technology far beyond humanity's current capabilities. Estimated technological advantage? Conservative estimate? Several centuries ahead of us. Possibly more. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. Louise felt her jaw tighten. Humanity had always prided itself on technological innovation, but they were about to face opponents who treated the fabric of reality as a tool. Then we use what they don't expect, Louise said finally. Desperation, creativity, and the fact that we have absolutely nothing left to lose. The alien fleet materialized at the edge of Pluto's orbital zone with no fanfare, no declaration, no ceremony. They simply arrived. One moment space was empty. The next 14 vessels hung in the void like dark pearls strung across the starfield. Louise watched from the bridge of Charon's crossing as her sensors struggled to penetrate the strange material composing the alien hulls. Distance, 2 million kilometers and closing, reported Navigator Martinez. They're not responding to our hails, but they've reduced their approach velocity. Louise studied the tactical display. The alien ships were unlike anything in human design philosophy. Where human vessels were built for function, angular, efficient, bristling with sensors and weapons, these ships seemed to flow. Their hulls curved and twisted as if they had been grown rather than manufactured, and they moved through space with an organic grace that made Louise's stomach clench. Size estimates? She asked. The largest vessel is approximately 2 kilometers in length, Marcus reported. Mass estimates are problematic. Our sensors are reading both massive density and void spaces that shouldn't be structurally possible. Dr. Vasquez's voice came over the intercom from her lab. Captain, I'm detecting biological components within their whole structure. These aren't just ships, they're partially living. A chill ran down Louise's spine. Humanity had theorized about biomechanical technology, but seeing it in practice was profoundly unsettling. Can you determine crew complements? Negative. The biomechanical elements are interfering with our life science scanners. Louise opened a channel to the fleet. All ships maintain defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon. We follow first contact protocols until we determine their intentions. The alien fleet continued its approach, their formation shifting with fluid precision. Louise could see now that the ships weren't simply following ballistic trajectories. They were actively swimming through space, their hulls rippling as they moved. Captain, Lieutenant Kim called urgently. I'm receiving something. It's not radio transmission, but there's a pattern. Put it through the main speakers. The bridge filled with a sound unlike anything Louise had ever heard. It wasn't quite music, wasn't quite voice, but something that seemed to resonate in her bones. The rhythm pulsed like a heartbeat, but irregular, complex, layered with harmonics that made her inner ear ache. Is it a communication attempt? Unknown, ma'am. The pattern is too complex for our linguistic analysis programs. Louise made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of the conflict. Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open. Louise stepped forward, very aware that she was potentially speaking to the first alien intelligence humanity had ever encountered. This is Captain Louise Meridian of the Plutonian Defense Corps, representing the human colony of Pluto. We welcome peaceful contact and offer to establish diplomatic relations. The alien song continued, unchanging. Then, without warning, it stopped. The silence stretched for nearly a minute before Lieutenant Kim's console erupted in alerts. "Captain? Energy spike from the lead vessel!" The main screen shifted to tactical view just in time to show a lance of brilliant blue energy reach out from the largest alien ship. It struck one of Pluto's orbital mining platforms, and the structure simply ceased. Not destroyed, not vaporized. It was as if the platform had never existed at all. "All ships, evasive maneuvers!" Louise barked. "The alien fleet is hostile!" "Repeat, the alien fleet is hostile!" The peaceful first contact scenario evaporated in an instant. Around Pluto's orbital zone, human ships began moving into attack formations while the alien vessels flowed forward like a school of predatory fish. "Admiral Zhang, report. Kuiper and Sedna are moving to intercept. Orbital platforms 6 through 9 have clear firing solutions." Louise gripped the command chair as Karen's crossing banked hard to port, avoiding another beam of blue energy that seemed to erase matter from existence. "All batteries, fire at will! Target the lead vessel!" The space around Pluto erupted in weapons fire. Human particle beams and plasma torpedoes lanced out toward the alien ships, while more of those reality-erasing blue beams reached back. Louise watched in horror as the destroyer Make took a direct hit amidships. The entire center section of the ship simply vanished, leaving the bow and stern tumbling separately through space. "What kind of weapon does that?" Marcus called out over the din of battle. "Unknown," Dr. Vasquez replied over the intercom. "But it's not just disintegration, they're actually removing matter from local space-time." Louise felt her tactical training kick in. Unknown enemy, unknown capabilities, but the same basic principles applied. "Can we damage them?" "Affirmative," came the response from the weapons station. "Our plasma torpedoes are having some effect on their whole structures." On the main screen, Louise could see one of the smaller alien vessels trailing some kind of biomechanical fluid from a section that had been struck by a full spread from the Kuiper. It was wounded, but still functional. "All ships, concentrate fire on damaged targets. Don't let them repair themselves." The battle raged for 3 hours. By the time the alien fleet pulled back to regroup, humanity had lost 4 ships and 6 orbital platforms. The aliens had lost 2 of their smaller vessels, but Louise suspected they had only been testing human capabilities. As the immediate threat receded, Louise slumped in her command chair, watching the casualty reports scroll across her screen. 3,000 human souls lost in humanity's first battle with an alien intelligence. And this was just the beginning. "Ma'am," Marcus said quietly, "the aliens are holding position at the edge of our sensor range. They're not leaving." Louise nodded grimly. "They're not here to destroy us quickly. They're studying us, learning our capabilities." She stood, straightening her uniform. "Then we need to learn theirs. All department heads, immediate briefing. We have maybe 6 hours before they come back, and next time they won't be testing." The emergency briefing took place in the command center deep within New Tombos Station. Louise looked around the table at the faces of humanity's remaining leadership: Commander Okafor, Admiral Zhang via holographic link from the heavily damaged Kuiper, Dr. Elena Vasquez, Chief Engineer Rodriguez, and Marcus Chen. Each person represented decades of experience and training, but none had ever faced an enemy that could erase matter from existence. "Initial assessment," Louise began without preamble. "What did we learn?" Dr. Vasquez activated the holographic display, showing tactical recordings from the battle. "The enemy's primary weapon appears to manipulate quantum vacuum states. In simple terms, they're convincing local space that matter shouldn't exist there. Can we defend against it?" Admiral Zhang asked. His ship had taken a grazing hit that had removed 30 meters of her starboard hull. "Unknown. Our electromagnetic shields had no effect, which suggests the weapon doesn't interact with matter in conventional ways." Vasquez manipulated the display to show the molecular analysis of the attack sites. "However, I noticed something interesting. The weapons have a limited range, approximately 50,000 kilometers. Beyond that, the quantum effect seems to dissipate. Commander Okafor leaned forward. So we keep our distance. Easier said than done, Admiral Zhang replied. Those ships are fast and maneuverable. They can close distance faster than we can retreat. Louise studied the tactical data. What about their vulnerabilities? We did damage at least 2 of their vessels. Marcus brought up the weapon's effectiveness analysis. Our plasma torpedoes seem to disrupt their biomechanical hull structure. The high-energy plasma interferes with whatever biological processes they use for self-repair. Self-repair? Louise asked. Confirmed, Dr. Vasquez said. During the battle, I observed several of their ships healing damage in real time. Their hulls are living tissue of some kind, possibly engineered specifically for space travel. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, who had been silent until now, spoke up. If they're biological, they have the same vulnerabilities as any living system. Temperature extremes, radiation, toxins. We're in space, Marcus pointed out. Temperature extremes and radiation are everywhere. Yes, but they've adapted to what they expect, Rodriguez continued. What if we give them something unexpected? Louise felt a spark of an idea forming. Rodriguez, how quickly can you modify our plasma torpedoes? Depends on what you want me to do with them. I want you to turn them into biological weapons. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Vasquez was the first to speak. Captain, we know nothing about alien biology. We could be creating something that has no effect at all. Or, Louise replied, we could be creating something that their immune systems have never encountered. Earth bacteria, viruses, even engineered toxins designed for Earth-based life. Admiral Zhang's image flickered as he shifted position. It's a long shot, but it's more than we had an hour ago. How long do you need? Rodriguez was already running calculations in his head. Assuming Dr. Vasquez can help with the biological components, maybe 8 hours to retrofit our entire torpedo complement. Do it, Louise ordered. Admiral, I need you to keep the fleet mobile. Don't let them pin us down again. Understood. What about the civilian population? Commander Okafor answered. Evacuation to the deep shelters is proceeding, but it's slow going. We have elderly, children, people who have never been in a military situation. Louise felt the weight of those 40,000 lives pressing down on her. How long for complete evacuation? 72 hours minimum. We may not have that long. Louise stood, beginning to pace around the holographic display. The aliens are regrouping, probably analyzing our tactics just as we're analyzing theirs. When they attack again, it will be with full knowledge of our capabilities. Dr. Vasquez brought up a star chart showing the local stellar neighborhood. Captain, I've been thinking about why they're here. Our sun is dying, Pluto is barely habitable even with our terraforming efforts. What could they possibly want from this system? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Louise stared at the display, trying to think like an alien intelligence. What do we have that they might need? The dying star itself, Marcus said suddenly. What if they're not here for the planet? What if they're here for the energy output from our expanding sun? Louise felt pieces clicking together in her mind. A red giant star puts out enormous amounts of energy. If you had the technology to harness it, you'd have virtually unlimited power, Dr. Vasquez finished. Enough to fuel an interstellar civilization. But they need to clear out any potential interference first. Admiral Zhang added grimly. Like us. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't facing an invasion, they were facing an eviction. The aliens wanted their dying star, and 40,000 human refugees were simply in the way. Then we make ourselves too expensive to remove, Louise said firmly. Rodriguez, I want those biological torpedoes ready in 6 hours, not 8. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to analyze everything we know about their technology. Find me a weakness. And if we can't find one? Commander Okafor asked. Louise looked around the table at the faces of humanity's last defenders. Then we make sure they never forget the price of taking our star. Louise found herself standing once again at the observation deck, but now the view had changed dramatically. The ice plains of Pluto were dotted with the lights of emergency shelters as 40,000 civilians prepared for the possibility that their last refuge might become a battlefield. In the distance, she could see the blue-white flare of fusion torches as the remaining ships of the defense fleet maintained their patrol patterns. Couldn't sleep either? Marcus Chin approached from behind, carrying 2 cups of what passed for coffee on Pluto, a synthetic brew that tasted like memories of Earth. Too much to think about, Louise replied, accepting the warm cup gratefully. Any word from the engineering teams? Rodriguez and Dr. Vasquez have been working for 5 hours straight. They've managed to weaponize everything from common cold viruses to modified fungal spores. Whether any of it will affect alien biology is another question entirely. Louise sipped her coffee, feeling the bitter warmth spread through her chest. Sometimes I wonder what my grandmother would think of all this. She used to tell me stories about Earth's oceans, about whales and dolphins. She said the most beautiful thing about Earth wasn't the cities or the technology, it was the sound of waves on a beach. My family came from Beijing, Marcus said, staring out at the alien stars. My great-grandfather was a historian. He used to say that every civilization faces a moment when it must choose between survival and honor. He lived through the water wars, the climate collapse, the first migration. He said the greatest tragedy wasn't losing Earth, it was the possibility of losing what made us human in the process. They stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the distant patrol ships trace geometric patterns across Pluto's sky. Finally Marcus spoke again. Captain, there's something I need to tell you. I've been running tactical simulations based on the data from the first engagement. Louise turned to face him. And? We can't win. Not in a conventional sense. Even with our new biological weapons, even if we inflict significant casualties, their technology is simply too advanced. They can replace losses faster than we can inflict them. Louise had known this, of course, but hearing it stated so bluntly was still difficult. Recommendations? We make them decide that victory is too costly. We turn this into a war of attrition, make them bleed for every meter of space, every minute of time. Eventually, they'll conclude that there are easier sources of stellar energy in the galaxy. Assuming they think like us. Assuming they value their own lives. Marcus corrected. Every species that achieves interstellar travel must have some concept of self-preservation. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived long enough to reach us. Louise's communication device chirped with an incoming message. Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled through the small speaker. Captain, you need to see this. We've completed our analysis of the alien hull fragments. 20 minutes later, Louise and Marcus stood in the xenobiology lab, staring at what remained of alien technology. The fragments were small, pieces of biomechanical hull that had been blown free during the battle, but they represented humanity's first physical evidence of extraterrestrial life. It's incredible, Dr. Vasquez said, manipulating the microscopic view on her display. The whole structure is a hybrid of metallic lattices and living tissue. The metal provides structural integrity while the biological components handle self-repair and adaptation. Louise examined the cellular structures. They were unlike anything in Earth's evolutionary tree, but they followed recognizable patterns of DNA-based life. Are they carbon-based? Yes, but with significant silicon integration. Their cellular structure can process both organic compounds and metallic ores. It's as if they've engineered themselves to live in space permanently. Any vulnerabilities? Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. Several. The biological components require specific trace minerals to function properly. Without them, the self-repair systems fail and the metal lattice becomes brittle. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of trace minerals? Rare earth elements that are common in planetary crusts but virtually non-existent in deep space. Europium, terbium, dysprosium. Louise felt excitement building. We're sitting on a planet. Do we have access to those elements? Pluto's crust contains all of them in mineable concentrations, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. But more importantly, I've identified a biological agent that can disrupt their absorption of these minerals. She brought up a molecular diagram on her screen. It's a modified Earth bacteria, originally used in mining operations to extract rare earths from ore. I've engineered it to bind with the minerals the aliens need, making them unavailable for biological uptake. Louise stared at the molecular structure. How do we deliver it? Rodriguez has figured out how to incorporate it into our plasma torpedo warheads. The heat of the explosion will distribute the bacteria throughout their whole structure. Within hours, their self-repair systems should begin failing. Should begin? Dr. Vasquez nodded. This is all theoretical. We're making educated guesses about alien biology based on limited samples. But it's the best chance we have. Louise's communication device chirped again. This time it was Admiral Zhang. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up movement from the alien fleet. They're forming up for another attack run. Louise exchanged glances with Marcus and Dr. Vasquez. How long until they reach optimal firing range? 47 minutes. Louise felt the familiar pre-battle calm settling over her. All departments, battle stations. This is our chance to test our new weapons. Let's see if we can give these aliens something to think about. As they hurried toward the command center, Louise couldn't help but think about her grandmother's stories of Earth's oceans. Humanity had always been at their best when their backs were against the wall. Today, they would find out if that tradition would be enough to save them from the dark between the stars. The second battle began with deception. Louise had positioned her fleet in what appeared to be a defensive formation around New Tombaugh Station, but hidden among the civilian traffic and mining platforms were 12 unmanned drones armed with the new biological torpedoes. As the alien fleet approached, these drones would serve as humanity's first surprise. Contact in 90 seconds, reported Navigator Martinez. Alien fleet maintaining formation, speed constant. Louise studied the tactical display from the bridge of Karen's Crossing. The alien ships moved with the same organic grace as before, but their formation had changed. Instead of the loose school-like arrangement from the first battle, they now advanced in a precise geometric pattern that maximized their mutual support, while minimizing their exposure to human weapons. They've learned, Marcus observed from the tactical station. They're adapting to our capabilities. Then let's show them something new, Louise replied. All units, implement Lazarus Protocol on my mark. The Lazarus Protocol was Louise's answer to the aliens' superior technology. Instead of trying to match their capabilities, humanity would use their own destruction as a weapon. Ships that were too damaged to fight effectively would ram the alien vessels, while their crews escaped in life pods equipped with the biological agents. Admiral Zhang, status? Kuiper and Sedna ready for engagement. All torpedo tubes loaded with the new warheads. Orbital platforms? 7 platforms operational and linked to fire control. Louise watched as the alien fleet entered optimal weapons range. All ships commence firing. Release the drones. Space erupted in weapons fire once again, but this time the pattern was different. The human fleet scattered immediately after launching their first salvo, forcing the aliens to choose between targets. Meanwhile, the dozen hidden drones accelerated toward the alien formation at maximum velocity. Direct hit on the lead vessel, Marcus reported. The biological torpedo is spreading through their whole structure. On the main screen, Louise could see the largest alien ship beginning to show signs of distress. Sections of its biomechanical hull were developing dark patches where the engineered bacteria was disrupting the mineral absorption process. But the aliens were adapting even as they fought. Blue beams of quantum dissolution lanced out with frightening accuracy, erasing 3 of the drones before they could reach their targets. The remaining 9 slammed into the alien formation, their biological payloads spreading in expanding clouds of modified bacteria. Make 2 is taking heavy fire, came the report from the communication station. Louise watched as her newest destroyer maneuvered desperately to avoid the quantum weapons. The ship's captain, Commander Sarah Okafor, the daughter of the station commander, was pushing her vessel to its limits. All ships, cover Make 2's withdrawal. Plasma torpedoes and particle beams converged on the alien ships threatening the destroyer, but the return fire was devastating. Louise watched in horror as the quantum beam struck Make 2 directly amidships, erasing the entire engineering section. "Emergency beacon from Make 2! Lieutenant Kim called out. 43 life pods away." But Commander Okafor had one final surprise. Instead of allowing her ship to tumble helplessly, she used the remaining attitude thrusters to point the bow directly at the nearest alien vessel. "She's implementing Lazarus Protocol," Marcus shouted. The crippled destroyer, its life support failing and its weapons offline, accelerated toward the alien ship under the power of its damaged engines. The alien vessel tried to maneuver away, but the quantum weapon required time to charge between shots. Make 2 struck the alien ship at a relative velocity of 15 kilometers per second. The impact was visible even at long range, a brilliant flash that briefly outshone the distant sun. When the explosion faded, both ships were gone. "Confirmed kill on hostile vessel number 7, reported the tactical station. Louise felt a mixture of pride and grief. Humanity was learning to fight their new enemy, but the cost was staggering. "Status of the biological weapons?" Dr. Vasquez's voice came over the intercom from her laboratory. "Confirmed effectiveness on 3 alien vessels. Their self-repair systems are failing, and they're showing signs of structural degradation." On the tactical display, Louise could see the affected alien ships beginning to fall behind their formation. Their once graceful movement had become erratic as their biomechanical systems struggled with the bacterial infection. "All ships, concentrate fire on the damaged vessels. Don't let them recover." The human fleet, coordinated by quantum-encrypted communications that the aliens hadn't yet learned to jam, focused their remaining firepower on the wounded enemy ships. Plasma torpedoes and particle beams converged with surgical precision, overwhelming the aliens' defensive capabilities. 3 more alien vessels died in the space of 10 minutes, their biomechanical hulls rupturing as the biological weapons continued their work. But the remaining alien ships had learned from their losses. "Captain?" Marcus called urgently. "The aliens are withdrawing." Louise watched as the surviving alien vessels began to retreat, their formation shifting to protect the damaged ships. But instead of simply falling back, they were doing something unprecedented. "They're jettisoning sections of their hulls," Dr. Vasquez reported. "They're physically cutting away the infected areas and leaving them behind." The implications were staggering. The aliens were performing field surgery on their own ships, amputating the infected sections to save the rest of the vessel. It was brutal, efficient, and utterly alien in its disregard for the biomechanical components they were discarding. "How many hostiles remaining?" 8 ships, all showing various degrees of damage. "But Captain..." Marcus paused, studying his sensors. "They're not retreating to the edge of the system. They're falling back to the asteroid field beyond Pluto's orbit." Louise felt a chill of realization. "They're not regrouping. They're setting up a siege." The tactical display confirmed her fears. The alien ships were positioning themselves at strategic points around Pluto's orbital zone, cutting off any possible escape routes. They weren't trying to destroy the human colony quickly anymore, they were preparing to starve them out. "All ships, return to defensive positions," Louise ordered. "Begin immediate resupply operations." As the human fleet pulled back to regroup, Louise stared at the tactical display showing the alien siege positions. Humanity had won the second battle, but they were now trapped on their last world with an enemy that had learned the price of direct assault. The real war was just beginning.